Hello there and welcome to the first part in a series of videos that I will be doing on teaching grammar in the classroom. And before we go any further, let me be clear, this is not going to be your typical teaching grammar video. I will not be focusing on the form or the structure of the tense, but on the use of the tense, so the functions that we associate with this tense. So let's get started with the first part, which is on the present simple. Welcome back to my channel, Charlie's Lessons. My name's Charlie and thank you for coming back to watch another video. So recently I hit over 1,000 subscribers. So I just want to say thank you to every single one of you that have subscribed so far, and I really hope that these videos are of use to you as a teacher of English. So before we get started, let's think about what we use the present simple for. So all the activities in this video are going to promote these functions so that eventually your students will learn exactly when to use the present simple and when not to. One of my favorite activities to get students practicing this function is to get them to write their week agenda. So the things they do usually every week. So I usually give them a worksheet with Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday and get them to write in the spaces what they do on each of these days. I usually don't ask them to include school, so think about after school. When students have finished writing out their week's agenda, I get them to compare their agendas with other students in the classroom. Firstly, I'm looking for students to find things they have in common. Alternatively, you can get the students to find out 3 things about another student's agenda and then share that with the class. If what the students do in their free time is a little bit boring or uninspiring, which it usually is, you can get them to select some famous people or celebrities or sports stars that they're interested in and find out about their routines. If you're doing these activities online or for homework, then why not check out my video on collaborative learning activities right here. Here, you can get students to collate material from internet resources about the routines of famous people. If you don't have technology in the classroom, then maybe before the class, print out some fact sheets about certain celebrities and put them around the classroom for students to learn about some of the famous people that they're interested in. So for example, one of my students, Pedro, is a big fan of Shakira, and he told us about how Shakira goes to singing practice on Mondays, goes to watch Barcelona play football on Wednesdays, etc. So next, when we talk about general facts using the present simple, an activity that I usually do is talk about jobs and professions. What I ask the students to do is first come up with a list of popular professions and jobs. Then I get the students to choose a job and describe what a person typically needs to be or needs to do that job. So for example, a football player needs to go to football training every day and needs to eat well. Or for example, a politician. A politician needs to steal and lie. Or for example, a teacher. A teacher needs to be funny, caring, organized, inspiring, enthusiastic, hardworking, vaccinated, on time, underpaid. Sorry, get a little bit carried away there. Another interesting take on talking about general facts using the present simple with your students is to talk about cultural norms or stereotypes. So for example, English people are cold, they drink tea, they love the Queen, and they eat fish and chips every day. All of those things are true. Or Spanish people love sleeping, they fight bulls every day and dance flamenco and then sleep a siesta. Again, all of these things are true. This activity is very similar to the popular board game Guess Who. What I do is either on the board or on the projector, I give the students this vocabulary. I can either dictate these words or I put it on the board for the students to copy. Make sure you let the students know which vocabulary is used for the hair, the face, for size, or for your opinion. Now, there are 2 ways you can do this. You can either get the students to write a description of one of their classmates, but if you prefer to avoid that, then you can go to a website like Avatar Maker and create a series of avatars. Have the avatars on the board and have the students one at a time describe one of the avatars, and the other students listen and have to guess which avatar the student was describing. Activity number 2 involves the teacher taking random objects from the students and putting them in a bag. You then, as the teacher, put your hand in the bag and begin to describe what it is you feel. So perhaps you would say to the students, it feels small, it feels soft, it feels furry. And once you finish describing and the students don't get the answer, you could invite a student to come up to the front and pull the object out of the bag. You make it a little bit easier for the students if they're struggling by having the students see what objects you're putting into the bag before you start the activity. The final activity that I use to get my students using the present simple to describe things is talking about the differences between certain objects. With younger students, you might make it obvious what the difference is. So you might have something like lake, ocean, and river, and then mountains. Older students, you might make the differences a little more subtle. Maybe Spanish wine, Italian wine, German wine, and French wine. Actually, that's pretty difficult. Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the differences the students say, as long as they are using the present simple to talk about the differences between the objects. Now, one of the more lesser known functions of the present simple is to talk about future events. This function works brilliantly with an activity about itineraries, to get the students to come up with a holiday of their dreams and to talk about the itinerary for that holiday. You could even imagine that one group of students is a famous rock band and they're speaking to their tour organizer, and the tour organizer is going through the itinerary for a 3-month tour of the United States. So the tour manager begins with something like, you depart from Heathrow and arrive at Los Angeles on the 5th of September at 10 o'clock in the morning. Your first gig is in the Lakers Stadium on Saturday at 10 o'clock. And your hotel is the Grand Royale, I just made that up, and so on. So there you have it, a series of activities that all promote the functions that are associated with the present simple. One thing you can do when you get to the end of any of these classes where you've practiced the functions of the present simple is to give students at the end of the class an exit ticket with these functions on the ticket, and just ask the students if they feel more comfortable or more confident doing these things. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you come back for the second part in this series on teaching grammar in the classroom.